People always dream about escaping the city. They romanticize a quiet life in the woods, a secluded cabin, birdsong in the morning, firewood at night, and not a soul to bother you except maybe the wind. I lived that dream. Until Karen, the self-appointed dictator of the HOA, decided my dream didn't fit her version of community standards. This is the story of how she ended up in my cabin at midnight, without permission, and how I ended up calling 911 on her. And no, this isn't some metaphor. She literally broke in and slept in my bed. But to understand how it got to that point, you have to know what happened before that night. I bought the cabin 6 months ago. It sat at the edge of Pine Needle Estate's, a remote HOA-regulated neighborhood nestled in the Rockies. Most of the properties here were vacation homes, empty for 9 months out of the year. I was one of the few year-rounders, as Karen liked to call us, with visible disdain. To her, year-rounders were a threat to the illusion of exclusivity. My place was technically outside the official HOA boundary, but close enough to share a private road and access to the lake. And that was enough for Karen to think she had jurisdiction over me. Karen, full name, Karen Ellingsworth Lane, was the HOA president. Blonde bob, mirrored aviators, clipboard always in hand. She took her volunteer role more seriously than most people take a federal job. From the second I moved in, I was on her radar. The first warning came 3 days after I moved in, too. Jake Lawson non-compliant firewood storage. It was a yellow slip taped to my door like a parking ticket. Apparently, stacking firewood in a crisscross log cabin style was unsightly compared to vertical stacking against the rear wall, which, by the way, was nowhere near her property. I ignored it. The next week, I got a notice for using unauthorized exterior lighting. Translation: I had strung a few solar lanterns along the front porch, so I wouldn't break my neck walking outside at night. Karen didn't like them. They disrupt the natural forest ambience, she wrote. I'm not making this up. By the third notice, something about the inappropriate height of my satellite dish, I knew this wasn't just about rules. It was about control, and she didn't have any over me. At first, it was small stuff. I'd wake up and find my trash bins tipped over. I assumed raccoons. Then my mail started going missing. Amazon packages vanished. The post office said they'd been delivered, but they weren't on my porch. Then one morning, I noticed a weird footprint in the frost outside my front door. It was a boot print, size maybe 7 or 8. Too small for me. I didn't have visitors. And then there was the whistling. I'd hear it around 11 p.m., some tune I didn't recognize, off-key and slow, drifting through the woods outside. Always from the same direction, the trail that led toward Karen's cabin. The creepiest part: when I turned on my porch light, the whistling would stop immediately. One Sunday, I ran into Karen while walking my dog, Ranger. She wore one of those oversized sun visors and a t-shirt that read HOA equals harmony of all. "Jake," she said sweetly. "Too sweet. We've had complaints." I asked. She blinked, pretending to think. From concerned members of the neighborhood, I gestured around. "You mean the chipmunks? You're the only full-time resident within half a mile." She smiled with her teeth. "Your presence here has disrupted things. The balance. You might be more comfortable elsewhere." "You mean not here?" she said, stepping closer. "Some people don't understand what it means to belong to a community. To follow rules, you live like a squatter." That's when I saw it, a flicker behind her eyes. She wasn't just a control freak, she was obsessed, and I had become her project. That week, I installed motion cameras. I didn't tell anyone. I kept the porch light off on purpose. If someone came creeping again, I wanted evidence. The day before it happened, the night she broke in, I reviewed the footage over coffee. And there she was, Karen, on my property. At 2:14 a.m., wearing a heavy robe, walking slowly past the porch. She paused at the steps, looked around. Then she walked out of frame. She didn't knock, didn't call, just lurked. My stomach turned. I saved the footage on a thumb drive and tucked it into my safe. Something told me I'd need it. The night Karen broke into my cabin was cold, quiet, and moonless. I had just finished a long day chopping firewood and was deep into a rewatch of The X-Files when something made me pause. A noise, faint but deliberate. Not a raccoon, not wind. A click. I muted the TV. Ranger, my dog, lifted his head from the rug and let out a low growl. His ears were pointed toward the back hallway. There it was again, the sound of a door. Hinge, not mine. My heart beat faster. I moved silently to the hall, barefoot, and listened. Silence, and then a creak. From the guest bedroom, the one that faced the forest, I had locked that room from the inside weeks ago. Or at least, I thought I had. I grabbed the old Louisville Slugger from behind the coat rack. My phone was charging on the counter within reach. I tapped 911, but didn't hit call yet. Slowly, I made my way down the hall. The guest room door was closed. No light visible beneath the threshold. No noise. I stood there for at least 2 minutes, my heart thudding like a drum. And then, just as I reached for the doorknob, I heard it snoring. Soft, rhythmic, unmistakably human. I froze. Someone was in my house, sleeping, in the guest room. I backed up, thumbed my phone screen, and hit call. Dispatcher, 911. What's your emergency? Me. Someone broke into my house. They're asleep in my guest room. Dispatcher, do you know who they are? Me. No idea. But they didn't come in through the front. Gotcha. Are you in immediate danger? Me. They haven't moved yet. But I don't know if they're armed. Dispatcher, officers are on their way. Stay on the line. Stay where you are. I crept back down the hallway. Ranger followed, teeth bared, tail stiff as a board. We hunkered behind the couch, waiting. It took them 20 minutes to get there. 2 sheriff's deputies from the county officer, DeWitt, and Officer Harper. Tall guys, friendly, but no nonsense. I opened the door and let them in. Ranger barked once, then fell silent. What's the situation? DeWitt asked. One pointed down the hallway. Guest room. They're still in there. He nodded. We'll handle it. Stay back. They drew weapons and approached the door. County Sheriff, DeWitt called. Come out now. Hands visible. No response. Harper opened the door slowly, gun ready. And then, oh, for the love of Harper muttered, crept up behind them. There she was, Karen, lying on her side in my guest bed, covered in my extra quilt, snoring like a chainsaw. Ma'am, DeWitt said loudly, you need to wake up. Karen stirred, rolled onto her back, opened her eyes. Blink, then blink again. WHA. She looked around, confused. Then her gaze landed on me, and she smiled. Jake, I didn't think you'd be awake. Harper looked at me, then back at her. Ma'am, do you know where you are? Karen sat up, brushing her hair behind her ears like this was all normal. Of course I do. I'm at Jake's cabin. You entered without permission, DeWitt asked. I have keys to all community access properties. No, you don't. I snapped. This isn't an HOA property. This is my private cabin. Karen frowned. Don't be silly. We've discussed this before. Your parcel borders shared land. That gives me partial authority. Harper stared at her. Ma'am, it's breaking and entering. Karen's smile faltered. I belong here. DeWitt radioed in the situation. Harper asked me if anything was missing. No, I don't think so. I didn't even know she was here until 10 minutes ago. She entered through the side window, Harper said. The lock's busted. Looks like it was forced open. I stared at Karen. You broke in. Karen stood up slowly, still acting like she was the host of some garden party. Jake, please, don't be dramatic. I came in because the forest trail was too dark. I heard noises. I felt unsafe. I needed shelter. So you picked my house without calling, without knocking. I did knock, she said triumphantly. You didn't answer. That implies consent in rural emergency protocol. Harper gave her a look. That's not a thing. Karen's eyes darted between us. You don't understand. This community needs structure. She pointed at me, refuses to follow even basic guidelines. He's undermining everything Pine Needle Estate stands for. By living in my house, I snapped. Karen looked flushed. You don't deserve to be here. You treat it like a wilderness outpost. You have no sense of decorum. DeWitt finally stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm placing you under arrest for unlawful entry and trespassing. Karen gasped. What? This is outrageous. I was protecting myself. Then you should have called 911 yourself, DeWitt replied. He cuffed her hands behind her back. Karen didn't go quietly. She shrieked about bylaws, personal safety, and the moral decline of solo male homeowners. I watched from the doorway as they led her outside. Karen twisted her neck around and hissed. This isn't over, Jake. You'll regret this. I already do, I muttered. After they took her away, I stood in the middle of my cabin, surrounded by silence. The bed was rumpled. My drawer was open. I found a toothbrush in the bathroom that wasn't mine, a toothbrush she had planned. I checked my fridge to yogurt's missing. Kitchen mug in the sink. Karen hadn't just broken in, she'd moved in. Like she thought it was hers. When I remembered the security footage, I dug out the thumb drive and watched the previous night's video. Karen appeared around 11:53 p.m., carrying a tote bag and flashlight. She didn't knock, she walked straight to the back. It was premeditated by sunrise. Every full-time resident within a 5-mile radius had heard the news. Karen Ellingsworth Lane was arrested at Jake Lawson's cabin after allegedly breaking and entering. I didn't have to say a word. The rumor mill was already running at full speed. Someone had snapped a photo of her being put into the back of the cruiser, still in her pink robe and fuzzy socks. The image was all over the local Facebook group by 8 a.m. Caption: HOA, President or Home Invader. The comments ranged from shocked to thrilled. I always knew something was off about her. She once fined me $200 for having a bird bath. The irony, the rules queen breaking the biggest one of all. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or install a moat. 3 days later, Pine Needle Estates HOA held an emergency Zoom meeting. I joined out of sheer curiosity, anonymously, with my camera off and username set to cabin observer. The screen filled with familiar faces, mostly older retirees with coffee mugs, cats, or the occasional American flag in the background. In the top corner, Gerald Myers, vice president, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen's little square was blacked out. Gerald cleared his throat. Hi everyone. As many of you are aware, there was an incident involving our president, Mrs. Ellingsworth Lane. Someone snorted off mic. We can't comment on ongoing legal proceedings, he continued, but I want to stress that the HOA board takes these allegations seriously. Then Janice from Lot 17 unmuted. Are we just gonna pretend she didn't break into a man's home and sleep there like Goldilocks on Ambien? Several others laughed. Janice, Gerald warned. No, seriously, Janice said. She's been power tripping for years. Maybe now we'll finally fix the mailbox rule. Gerald looked like he aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Until further notice, he said, Karen is suspended from all HOA duties. The board will vote on a formal removal next week. Can we vote now? Someone said. Because I've got a Karen-free party to plan. Evening, I heard a knock at the door. I froze. I half expected it to be Karen out on bail, ready to demand her toothbrush back. But it wasn't. It was Gerald. He stood there awkwardly, holding a thermos and what looked like a homemade apple pie. Hi, he said. Mind if I come in for a minute? I stepped aside, cautious. Sure, but if that pie's poisoned, I'll know. He chuckled nervously. I just came to say thank you. For what? Pressing charges. He sat down on my porch bench and sipped from his thermos. You know, he said, Karen's been riding us all like a drill sergeant. Half of us are too scared to repaint our sheds. The other half just hide indoors. So why'd you let her run the place? I asked. He sighed. Because no one else wanted to. She took the reins and, well, once she had them, she never let go. I raised an eyebrow. She's always been obsessive, he admitted, but this. A day later, I was chopping wood when Ranger sprinted to the edge of the yard, barking like crazy. I grabbed my phone and ran after him, but it wasn't Karen this time. It was Angela, Karen's daughter, late 20s, pale, nervous energy. She wore a bulky sweatshirt and carried a cardboard box. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said. "Hands up. I wanted to give you this." She held out the box. Inside, Karen's personal journal, a USB stick, and a bunch of HOA documents. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. Angela bit her lip. "Because my mom's not well. She hasn't been for a long time, but no one listens to me. And you think this will help?" I took the box, skeptical. Angela hesitated. "High praise," I muttered. She was obsessed, Jake. But it wasn't just about the rules. That night, I opened Karen's journal. It started normal enough, dated entries, neat cursive handwriting, mostly HOA-related grievances. But then, it shifted. May 14, Jake left his porch light on again. I can't sleep. It hums in my brain like static. I dreamed he built a treehouse and declared himself President of Freedom. June 2, I knocked, but he didn't answer. I heard his dog bark. He's hiding something, maybe drugs or a bunker, or something worse. Something worse. June 15th, it's not trespassing. If no one sees you, he needs monitoring. By the time I hit the July entries, things got darker. July 4th, he smiled at me today. It felt wrong. He's mocking me, testing me. I won't lose control of my neighborhood. I stared at the page for a long time. She wasn't just annoying, she was unwell, paranoid, delusional, and yet she had run an entire neighborhood for years. The USB drive was even more revealing. Dozens of folders. Seriously, inside were time-stamped screenshots, likely from trail cams. She'd hidden without anyone's knowledge. Some of them showed me chopping wood, walking Ranger, taking out the trash. Others showed people I didn't recognize. Couples sneaking onto private trails, teens having bonfire parties at the lake. She'd been documenting everything. But the most disturbing file. In it, Karen detailed acceptable methods for reclaiming rogue properties, including illegal entry, squatters' rights petitions, and even social nudging through staged interventions. I felt sick. She hadn't just slept in my house for one night. 1 week later, the HOA board held its official vote. I didn't attend. Didn't need to. The results were posted on the community board the next morning. Her nameplate was taken down. Gerald was named interim president. "I think the neighborhood owes you," he said. "Big time." I shrugged. I just wanted to chop wood and drink coffee. "Well," he said, "you've got that, and a legend." Just when things started to quiet down, it happened. Karen was released on bail. I saw it on the county inmate site first. I heard she went straight to the courthouse with a clipboard. No one knew where she was staying. The next morning, I found a note on my porch, written in pen, folded neatly, placed under a smooth river stone. "I will not be erased. Order will be restored. K." I didn't call the police. Not yet. After the last scare, I'd installed my own security cameras, one out front, one behind the cabin, one on the forest trail. That same night, I checked a feed before bed. 11:42 p.m. movement on the trail. I froze the frame. A figure in a long coat, hood up, short, stiff, posture, carrying something metallic. The person paused 30 feet from my cabin, then slowly backed into the trees and vanished. I zoomed in. The coat wasn't black. It was pastel, pink. 3. The confrontation the next day. I drove into town, hoping for a break from the madness. I needed groceries, dog food, and at least one human conversation that didn't involve restraining orders. At the general store, I found myself face to face with Angela again. She was buying chamomile tea and cough drops. Her eyes lit up. "When she saw me, Jake, she's trying to contact you again, isn't she?" I nodded. "She left a note. She was near my cabin last night. Angela looked down at the tea boxes. She's not sleeping. She thinks you've stolen her identity or her mission. Or, I don't even know anymore. She needs help. I said, but I'm done being polite about it. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She wrote something. Else, she whispered, I shouldn't be giving this to you, but I can't take it anymore. I opened it. Karen's handwriting. Frantic this time. He doesn't understand. He doesn't belong here. He's the agent of chaos. If he stays, Pine Needle falls. Angela bit her lip. She thinks you're cursed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Neither could Ranger. He paced the cabin, growling at shadows. At 1:13 a.m., the security alert pinged my phone. Motion detected. Back camera. I checked the feed. A flash, then another. I jumped up, pulled on my boots, grabbed the bat. The smoke was already curling under the door. She'd set the woodshed on fire. I burst. I grabbed the hose, cursed, sprayed what I could. Ranger barked and snarled like a beast. Then I saw her, Karen, standing at the edge of the tree line, silhouetted against the flames like some twisted prophet. She didn't run. She watched. I approached slowly, bat still in hand, eyes locked on her. Karen, I said, my voice hoarse. You need to stop. She didn't flinch. Her eyes were wild, glassy. You're the infection, she said. You set fire to my shed. The forest will cleanse, she whispered. You never belonged. I heard sirens in the distance. Someone had called it in. Maybe Angela. Maybe the neighbors. Karen took a step forward. I watched this place die year by year. Sprinklers, RVs, lawn gnomes. Then you arrived, with your dog and your axes and your silence. I just wanted to live in peace. And that, she hissed, is the problem. We stood there, locked in a strange stillness. Ranger growled low and steady. Karen raised her hands like she was going to hug me or scratch my eyes out. Then the deputies arrived, gang guns drawn. This time, she didn't scream about bylaws. She didn't protest. She went silent as they cuffed her and read her rights. DeWitt nodded at me. You all right? I just nodded, exhausted. She needs help, I said. She'll get it, he replied, and for once, I believed him. Karen was placed on a psychiatric hold. The fire was ruled arson. Angela took over her affairs, quietly selling her mother's property to a couple from Colorado who liked goats and solar panels. The neighborhood held a bonfire party to cleanse the energy. Someone brought t-shirts that said, I survived the HOA. They sold out fast. Gerald formally dissolved half the HOA policies, including acceptable mailbox fonts and the annual shrub audit. People started waving at each other again, sharing tools, letting the forest grow a little wild. A month later, I stood on my porch, watching the sunset, Ranger at my feet, a new woodshed halfway built. Angela drove up and got out with a box in hand. This was the last thing in her storage unit, she said. Figured it belonged to you. Inside was an old, dusty photo frame. Karen and her husband back when Pine Needle was just dirt roads and campfires. They looked happy, free, normal. She wasn't always like that, Angela said. I know, I replied, but she made a choice. Angela looked at the sky. Maybe you'll stick around a while. I think I will, she smiled. And for the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Pine Needle Estates changed after Karen was gone. No more anonymous fines. No more surveillance. No more pastel pink SUVs parked crooked in front of the mailboxes. Gerald served a calm term as HOA president, then stepped down. The board shrank from 7 to 3 members, and after a neighborhood vote, HOA participation became voluntary. Life got good. I expanded my woodshed, built a screened porch. Ranger got older and slower, but never lost his bark. Angela moved to Oregon, leaving behind a tiny envelope with a note. Keep the peace. Don't let the forest fall. I wasn't sure what she meant until the letter came. It arrived on a Thursday. No return address, no stamp. just a plain white envelope stuck in my screen door. Inside, a single typed sentence in 14-point Times New Roman. Some infections linger even after the fever breaks. Below it, a printed picture of my cabin from the woods. Recent. From the angle, I could tell it came from behind the old HOA shed, the one Karen used to store regulation signage, which of course had been torn down. Or so I thought. 2 days later, the HOA board group chat, mostly dormant, lit up. Gerald, anyone know who posted the flyers at the community board this morning? Janice, what flyers? Gerald, their rules printed, laminated, titled, Pine Needle, Code V20. Me, please tell me this is a bad joke. I drove to the community board. There they were. No dogs off leash within 20 feet of paved paths. No unpainted mailboxes. Cabin colors limited to forest green, slate, or approved bark hues. Firewood stacks must not exceed 4 feet in height. Residents may not install trail cams without prior notice. At the bottom, signed anonymous steward of order. I ripped it down. But someone had posted 3 more around the trail. That night, I opened the old USB again, the one Angela had given me. There were files I hadn't opened before, password-protected ones. It hit me, Karen's dog's name. I tried it, access granted. Inside, a folder labeled contingency plan. Reclamation. It described a scenario where, if she could not resume leadership, she'd recruit or manipulate a surrogate, someone sympathetic to her mission to carry out enforcement anonymously. Her list of targets included former board members, disgruntled residents, male outsiders with cabin properties who oppose structure. I was number 3. Over the next week, my trail cam was stolen. A strange beeping sound came from under my deck one morning, like someone had measured it, then toppled it in protest. One night, I left a note at the edge of the forest, pinned with an axe head. I'm not afraid of rules. I'm afraid of ghosts. Ghosts with no life to go back to. The next morning, the note was gone, replaced with a laminated copy of an old Karen Ellingsworth Lane newsletter. Freedom is a symptom. Order is the cure. Vi. The return of Angela 3 weeks later. Angela showed up unannounced. She looked thinner. Her eyes darted like she was being followed. I wasn't going to come back, she said, standing in the exact spot her mother once did, but something's wrong. I let her in. She handed me a USB stick. This wasn't in my mom's files. It was mailed to me last month. No name, just a thumb drive with surveillance footage, recent stuff. Of you, of this place. I opened it. Dozens of files. Footage from trail cams that I hadn't set up. Footage of me on the porch. Me in the woods. Me sleeping through the window. My blood turned cold. They're rebuilding her system, Angela said, piece by piece. But who? Angela's voice was quiet. She called them echoes. People she mentored. People who believed in her more than they believed in reality. A week later, the forest grew quiet. No flyers, no notes, no strange symbols etched into my siding. Until the last message. It was carved into a tree near my fence. Deep. With care, the forest remembers. You just rented peace. I reported it. Rangers investigated. They found new cameras in the trees, disguised in bark. The lenses had been removed, but the intent was clear. Someone had resurrected her playbook. I burned the files. Angela left again. I gave her Ranger's favorite collar. Now that he'd passed, said maybe it would keep her grounded. She cried. Hard. I'm still here. The cabin still stands. A little worn, a little wiser. I've added signs of my own, now hand-painted ones. Welcome, wanderer. No rules beyond this tree. Chaos lives here and makes great coffee. Every now and then, I hear rustling. Not the wind, not animals, echoes. But I don't run. I don't fight. I let the cabin speak for itself. And every morning, I split wood. It's not for warmth anymore, but as a warning. I'm still watching too.